Hey everybody, we're talking about do-it-yourself, no sales taxes today. So let's get going. The sales tax statute, and it originated in 1862. It's located at 12 Stat 432, which was approved on July 1st, 1862. Chapter 101, 101. An act to provide internal revenue to support the government and pay interest on the public debt. And it goes on that for the purpose of superintending the collection of internal duties, stamp duties, licenses, or taxes imposed by this act or which may hereafter be imposed, and of assessing the same. An office is hereby created in the Treasury Department to be called the Office of Commissioner of Internal Revenue. So that's where the Commissioner of Internal Revenue was created. Anyways, this act goes on. Section 4, it says that he's got to get a bond. Section 8 starts talking about persons. And says that if any person owning, possessing, or having care or management of property, goods, wares, merchandise, articles, or objects liable to pay any duty, tax, or license shall fail to exhibit a list when required. Okay, so it's persons. Okay, it's corporations. Section 26. This is again the beginnings of Title 18 United States Code, of what is now Title 18 United States Code, Section 241 and 242, violating your rights under the color of law. And this is basically the original, one of the original, the one in 1861 that I did in regards to property taxes, and this one in regards to sales taxes are where that originated from. So now they're talking about ad valorem duty in Section 68. That's at 1412 Stat 432. So that on and after the first day of August 1862, every individual, partnership, firm, association, or corporation, and any word or words in this act indicating or referring to person or persons shall be taken to mean and include partnerships, firms, associations, or corporations. So it's all corporate. Corporations have to pay the tax, and that's true even today. And this is and it's talking about ad valorem taxes, and we'll talk about ad valorem taxes here in a minute. Anyways, there's a whole list, and this act covers a bunch of things besides just ad valorem taxes. It also covers business taxes, all sorts of licenses, all sorts of stuff. And that's all the topic of another video. Anyways, so it's talking about on all paints and painter's colors, dry ground oil or in paste with painter's colors, water not otherwise provided, 5% ad valorem tax. On pins, solid head or other, 5% ad valorem tax. On umbrellas, parasols made of cotton, silk, or other material, 5% tax ad valorem. These are all ad valorem taxes. And this is only a small part of the list. The list goes on for several pages. An ad valorem tax is a tax proportional to the value of the thing taxed. Okay, and so how best to determine the value of something taxed is you sell it, and then you know what it's valued. A person is only a fictitious entity. This act talks about persons, and it defines what persons are, even in the act, and they're all fictitious entities. And this is actually another act, 1871, which is 16 Stat 4031, and an act prescribing the form and enacting and resolving clauses of acts, resolutions of Congress, and rules of construction. Therefore, and be it further enacted, all acts hereinafter passed, the word person may extend and be applied to bodies politic and corporate, which means it is corporate. An act concerning the construction of statutes and Arizona statutes. Now, this is actually a New Mexico statute, but Arizona was originally part of the New Mexico territory. And so Anyways, in Section 1, it says that is the construction of statutes in this territory. The following rules should be observed. The word person may be extended to bodies, politic, and corporate. And then in Arizona statutes, this is where, this is chapter, 656, which was approved February 24th, 1863. This is a 12 Stat 664, an act to provide a temporary government for the territory of Arizona. And it talks about, together with all the legislative and acts of the territory of New Mexico not inconsistent with the provisions of this act are hereby extended to and continue in force in said territory of Arizona. So that previous act still applies in Arizona. When used in this title, where not otherwise distinctly expressed or manifestly incompatible with the intent thereof, person, the term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. And that's the modern day Internal Revenue Code. And Title 1, United States Code, Section 1, which is, by the way, positive law. The words person and whoever include corporations, companies, associations, firms, partnerships, societies, joint stock companies, as well as individuals. Well, you know, if you understand the law of ad justum generis, individuals a fictitious entity because all the rest of them are fictitious entities. But we're going to talk about the word includes in a minute. Person means an individual, firm, partnership, association, corporation, and Texas Transportation Code. Person includes a corporation, organization, government or governmental division or agency, business, trust, estate, trust, partnership, association, or other legal entity under the Texas Government Code. Include, or the participial form thereof, is defined to comprise within, to hold, to contain, enclosed, comprise, comprehend, embrace, involve. Include under the American Dictionary of English Language, 1828, Noah Webster. To confine within, to hold, to contain, as a nut, shell of a nut includes a kernel. A pearl is included in the shell. To comprise within, to comprehend, to contain. Okay, and then Black's Law Dictionary says basically the same thing. And so the point is that include is limiting. All state statutes are actually federal statutes under the international law rule adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction. Federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only statutory but the common law of the state. This is taken from a document called the Jurisdiction Over Federal Areas Within the States, report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction Over Federal Areas Within the States, Part 2, which there's two parts. One part is like about 1,000 pages and the other part's like about 600 pages. A text of the law of legislative jurisdiction submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President June 1957. And that's on page 158. And it goes on page 165. Talks about state and federal venue discussed. Civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction are federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state laws, and a cause arising under such laws may be brought in or removed to a federal district court under sections 24 or 28 of the former Judicial Code, now sections 1331 and 1441 of Title 28 United States Code, giving jurisdiction to such courts of civil actions arising under the laws of the United States. And so the point being is that all state laws are federal laws, if you're a U.S. citizen, and here is why. And this is National Mutual Insurance Company, the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states were not included in the catalog of controversies over which Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power, nationally covers those citizens, even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. And so, if you're a U.S. citizen, then there's no state of Arizona, there's no state of Texas, you're in D.C., no matter where you're at. And that's why all state statutes are for U.S. citizens. Matter of fact, if you all the state statutes, if you read them, it talks about the person and which is a U.S. citizen. This is Washington Code in this state and within this state. in this state and within the state includes all federal areas lying within the exterior boundaries of the state. Okay, so when they're talking in their statutes, and it all goes through all the statutes, and it says in the state or within the state, and whether it's upper and lower case or all block capital letters, it doesn't matter. The point is that it's federal areas, it's for U.S. citizens. And this is Texas tax code. Okay, in this state means within the exterior limits of Texas, and includes all territory within these limits ceded to or owned by the United States. But if you're a U.S. citizen, it means everywhere. Economy, plumbing, and heating. Persons who are not taxpayers are not within the system and can obtain no benefit by following the procedures prescribed for taxpayers, such as the filing of claims for refunds. The revenue laws are a code or a system of regulation of tax assessment and collection. They relate to taxpayers and not to non-taxpayers. The latter without their scope. No procedures are prescribed for non-taxpayers, and no attempt is made to annul any of their rights and remedies in due course of law. With them, Congress does not assume to deal. They are neither the subject nor the object of the revenue laws. Okay, so the question you have to ask yourself is, are you a U.S. citizen? Are you a taxpayer? Because a U.S. citizen is a taxpayer. If you're not a U.S. citizen, then you're not a taxpayer, by definition. This is the D.C. Code, an act to establish a code of law for the District of Columbia, and it says the legal estate to be the Sestake use, which is a Sestake trust. That's found at 31 Stat 1432 and Section 1617. A citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the public charitable trust, the constructive Sestake use or trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of USA and USA Inc. And that's found in Congressional Record, June 13th, 1967, page 15641 through 15646. Now, for all of you, those people that want to go and look up the site, that's a summary. And you have to read all 5 pages, and if you've ever seen the congressional record, that's a lot of reading. Anyways, every taxpayer is assessed to K trust having sufficient interest in the preventing an abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. So, and it goes on. This is in the D.C. Code again, an act to establish a code of law for the District of Columbia, and this is found at 31 Stat 1189. And that's the very beginning, actually. And it was further enacted that in interpretation and construction of said code, the following rules shall be observed, namely, the word person shall be held to apply to partnerships and corporations. It might be correctly said there is no such thing as a citizen of the United States. A citizen in any one of the states of the Union is held to be and called a citizen of the United States, although technically and abstractly there is no such thing. The term individual means a citizen of the United States and an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence. That's Title V under the current codes. Title V, United States Code, Section 552 AA2. And then if you go to 552 AA13, it says the term federal personnel means officers, employees of the government of the United States, member of the uniformed services, including members of the reserve components, individuals entitled to receive immediate or deferred retirement benefits under any retirement program of the government of the United States, including survivor benefits. So the thing to consider here is that what they're saying is that federal personnel is anybody that has a Social Security number. Okay, so the question is do you have a Social Security number? A U.S. citizen is a Sestake trust, so a Sestake trust has a Social Security number, but do you? And I can tell you that I don't. And I went, my first case that I went to the Supreme Court, I went and filed an affidavit, and it said that I swear on the penalty of perjury I do not have a Social Security number. I have never had a Social Security number, and I don't. And it was no problem because it's the number of a trust. And so you have to understand that. And that's what they're talking about here is that it's all for a trust, okay, and it has nothing to do with me. Sales taxes were originated by an act of Congress in 1862 for U.S. citizens. State statutes are actually U.S. statutes, so any state statute that talks about sales taxes is a federal statute. If you used, or the bail priests in the so-called courts can presume that you use Federal Reserve notes to pay for anything, then it's not paid for. Title 12, United States Code, under their code, Section 411, says Federal Reserve notes are let's see here, are to be issued at the discretion of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System for the purpose of making advances to the Federal Reserve banks through the Federal Reserve agents as hereinafter set forth, and no other purpose are authorized. The said notes shall be obligations of the United States, and so it's if you're using Federal Reserve notes, then you're a government employee, really, or you're a bank, and you shouldn't be using them. There's a distinction between a debt discharged and one paid. When discharged, the debt still exists, though divested of its character as a legal obligation during the operation of the discharge. So when you use Federal Reserve notes, you discharge the debts with limited liability. Federal Reserve banknotes and other notes constituting a part of the common currency of the country are recognized as good tender for money unless specifically objected to. It's all by consent. And when you use them, you've consented. The dollar, the legal currency of the United States, the unit of money consisting of 100 cents, the aggregate of specific coins which add up to $1, coins being the operative word. In the absence of qualifying words, it cannot mean promissory notes, bonds, or other evidence of debt. Okay, so again, a dollar is not, a Federal Reserve note is not a dollar. Banknotes constitute a large and convenient part of the currency of our country, and by common consent serve to a great extent all the purposes of coin. In themselves, they are not money, for they are not legal tender. Well, they passed an act and made them legal tender, but they're still not money. And yet they are good tender unless specifically objected to as being notes merely and not money. And it goes on, they subserve the purposes of money in the ordinary business of life by mutual consent, express or implied, of the parties to a contract, and not by binding force of any common usage, for the party to whom they may be tendered has an undoubted right to refuse accepting them as money. Nobody has to accept Federal Reserve notes. Banknote contracts. A banknote resembles a common promissory note issued by a bank or corporation authorized to act as a bank. It is, in fact, a promissory note. Actually, these ones aren't even Federal Reserve, so not even that. But such notes are not, for many purposes, to be considered as mere securities for money, but are treated as money in the ordinary course and transactions of business by the general consent of mankind. The forced loans of 1862 and 1863 in the form of legal tender notes were vital forces in the struggle for national supremacy. They formed a part of the public debt of the United States. That's the U.S. Supreme Court. So they're forced loans. Legal tender notes are forced loans. So the first solution is to object to the money, to the IOUs circulating for money. That's what they are, is they're IOUs. At common law, only gold or silver is legal tender. Okay, that goes back as old as time itself. If you want common law, then you absolutely must have honest measures. If you want lawful property, then you must defeat the bail presumptions. If you want to be a state citizen instead of a U.S. citizen slave, then you must quit doing things that U.S. citizens do and start doing things that state citizens do. A usufruct, the right of enjoying a thing the property of which is invested in another, and to draw from the same all profit, utility, advantage which it may produce, provided it be without altering the substance of the thing. A usufruct is a type of a trust. Federal Reserve notes, Bank of Canada notes, Bank of England notes are IOUs, as found in the Bankster Thieves 1, 2, and 3 videos, and also see the No Such Thing as a Bank Loan video. There is a distinction between a debt discharged and one paid. When discharged, the debt still exists, though divested of its character as a legal obligation during the operation of a discharge. So again, with banknotes, you discharge the debt. And this is actually a cite from Tolman's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 2, under the definition of mortmain. And it starts off, yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. For when they were driven out of all their former holds, they devised a new method of conveyance, by which the lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs, to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits, while the season of the land remains with the nominal fief, okay, the season I'm guessing is the possession, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy, to be bound in conscience to account to his sestique use for the rents and emoluments of the state. and it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. Okay, so the point being, there's a bunch of points I want to make with this, okay? The point being is that in 1835, the sestike use was how they conveyed property, okay, which is the same today. And they're talking about how this sestike use, that it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, which use is short for usufruct, the foundation of modern conveyancing. Okay, so that's the foundation of modern conveyancing in 1835. It was the foundation of conveyancing. It's still the foundation of conveyancing. And it's all ecclesiastical. It's coming from the Roman cult. Okay, that's where it's coming from. A sestike trust is from the Roman cult. A sestike trust is a fraud. Everything they do is a fraud. Frauds equals lies equals Satanism. Okay, these people are Satanists. If they can get you to participate in their fraud, then you cannot complain. But if you don't participate in their fraud, then once a fraud, always a fraud. Things invalid from the beginning cannot be made valid by some subsequent act. A thing void in the beginning does not become valid by lapse of time. These are all maxims of law. Time cannot render valid an act void in its origin. Out of fraud, no action arises. Okay, so again, this is all a fraud. Okay, the banksters use the sestike use for the property, and so that's a fraud. So they cannot complain. Okay, they have no equitable interest. They cannot complain. And any act by any government official to conceal a fraud becomes an act of fraud. It is a fraud to conceal a fraud. And a fraud is inexcusable and unpardonable. Fraud and deceit should excuse no man, and any fraud amounts to injustice. Fraud and justice never dwell together. What is otherwise good and just, as sought by force or fraud, becomes bad and unjust. These are all maxims of law. This is as old as time itself. Because almost everything is done these days with commercial paper, the Roman courts presume that commercial paper was used. The sestike trust originates with the Roman cult. It is the Roman cult that is stealing everything they can get their hands on. The Roman cult is trying to start World War III to reduce the population. Too many useless eaters, they say. Everything they do is a fraud. Quit participating in their fraud, their lies, and their Satanism. Do you know who you are? This video is not intended to scare anyone or make them feel like all is lost, because it is absolutely not. We need to know what the problem is before we can know what a good solution is. And the solution is actually offered by Congress. And this is Title 18, United States Code, Section 8. Obligation or other security of the United States defined. The term obligation or other security of the United States includes all bonds, certificates of indebtedness, national bank currency, Federal Reserve notes, Federal Reserve bank notes, coupons, United States notes, Treasury notes, gold certificates, silver certificates, fractional notes. Okay, so it lists all this obligations and securities of the United States. And that's Title 18, United States Code, Section 8. Well, Title 31, United States Code, Section 3124 talks about exemption from taxation. And it says, stocks and obligations of the United States government are exempt from taxation by a state or political subdivision of a state. The exemption applies to each form of taxation that would require the obligation, the interest on the obligation, or both, to be considered in computing the tax, except a non-discriminatory franchise tax or other non-property tax instead of a franchise tax imposed on a corporation, or an estate and inheritance tax. Okay, so the point being is that Federal Reserve notes are not taxable, and that's what you're using, and so that's under their own codes. So Congress knows that they're compelling the use of their commercial paper on everybody. Congress knows that all taxation is theft. Congress has to satisfy the Roman cult handlers, but at the same time provide an escape. Congress is full of Satanists. Okay, Satanists, all bar members are agents of the Roman cult. And how many bar members wind up going to Congress? How many bar members are in your local legislature? Okay, how many bar members are in your city council? It's 70 to 90%, guaranteed, anywhere you go. Congress wants it all to be voluntary. This is actually a United States Sales and Use Tax Exemption Certificate. and you should be able to use this in any state. And if you look at about the middle there, it says purchaser claims this exemption for the following reason: federal law, United States Code, Title 31, Section 3124, and Title 18, Section 8. See attached. You attach it. So you should be able to use that in any state. But Texas has their own. This is the Texas one that they issued. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Actually, there's people that have kind of made up a customized one that's similar to this. But if you look on the top here, in the top left-hand corner, it has a form number 01-339 back. So they try to hide it. This is actually a digital copy, and it'll be available on my group if you want to download it, and then you can use it if you're in Texas. Actually, that United States one is also digital, and it'll be on my group too. So then you see that 01-339 back. Anyways, some people in Texas have made up the basic form in a Word format, and so it's got all the stuff that form has, but it's got some other stuff too that we've added. And so this is the form, and we'll get in a little closer. And so we have Jackrabbit Patriot. That's a Texas thing. Freedom Avenue, Liberty Town, Texas. Okay, and so and then it says in the body. Matter of fact, we'll go to the next one here. Yeah, here's the body. And I'm exempt from levy based on my unalienable and unimpeachable birthright heritage of the imprescriptible common law rights of natural sentient man, given by the word of the Almighty Creator, Yahweh, the great I Am. I have the right to buy or sell, and my rights cannot be taxed. By law, all taxes must be paid in gold or silver only. Debt cannot lawfully be used to pay a debt, and that's true. You cannot pay a debt with a debt. There is no obligation to do the impossible. And I, me, myself, addressee, do declare the following under pains of penalty of perjury. Okay, so you got to say it under penalty of perjury. Under the laws of the Texian state, I am an individual, sovereign Texian American, a living soul, sui juris, not a corporation. I'm an age of majority, sound mind, competent to testify, have first-hand knowledge of the truths and facts herein, being true, correct, complete, certain, and not misleading. This is not a claim based upon applying for submitting a resale certificate, nor is this a claim intended for recognition as a charitable, religious, educational, farm, or nonprofit or government agency or organization, nor does this exemption certificate create any adhesion entry into any foreign jurisdiction. And then see the following exhibits are sites, and so then one of the things they talk about is Title 18, United States Code, Section... Where is it? I know Title 31, Section 3124 is there. I'm looking for Title 18. I don't see it there. But you can easily add it in. This is a Word document. So one of the things it says is I will be liable for payment. So if they want to come and look you up, but I guarantee you they never will. I know people that use these things all the time. And... some companies like Walmart will make you fill out their own form, and that's all. They try and put you into a box. So, you may not be able to use it everywhere. You can use it a lot of places. You have to pick your battles. Anyways, and then this is the bottom of the form. Oh, there it is. Title 18, United States Code, Section 8. That's before 31 USC 3124. And so it's all there. Anyways, this is actually a buyer's order where a guy bought a truck without paying sales tax, a $56,000 truck. It was a pretty nice truck. Anyways, it's a 2011 Ford truck, Super Duty F35, 8-cylinder. I guess it's a crew cab, white. It's been sanitized. The cash price was $51,011, and total cash price with all of the benefits package and all the rest of that garbage. Oh, they paid tax, title, and a license and all that too. So then it came to $59,229, but there's no tax. There's no sales tax. So they paid $500 down. They got a $2,500 rebate. And then the rest they paid with a check. I guess a cashier's check. Anyways, so they did it without paying any sales tax. Okay, so there's no sales tax that's listed here. I know people that use the sales and use tax exemption certificate everywhere it works. Sometimes they get into arguments or end up in a legal battle, and you have to pick your battles. Sometimes, I mean, for $10 worth of tax, it's not worth it sometimes. You know what I mean? Or $1. So, but that's what they want. Okay, these people are Satanists. They want to nickel and dime you to death. These DC Satanists are thieves. The DC Satanists do this because it pays to do it. If enough people fight it, they'll stop doing it. These documents are available on my private group in the sales tax folder. The point being is you never, ever, ever give up. Okay, and I know people that use them all the time. Judgment Day is coming for these Satanists. I know thy works and tribulation. I know the blasphemy of them that say they are Jews or Christians or whatever, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Ye are the father of the devil, the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So you got to stand up, and of course there's a lot of battles, so you got to pick your battles. You got to pick the ones that you think you can win. And you got to pick your battles that are worth the trouble. Otherwise, sometimes it's just better just to, pay the extortion and put it behind you. But so everybody's got to pick their own battles. The point is that what I'm trying to do is educate people so that they can. The more people that are fighting this stuff, the better. You got to be on point. And the more people that fight it, then there was a story that I learned about when I was in Canada one time. In Ontario, and this was back in the mid-90s, and they actually had photo radar in southern Ontario in the mid-90s. They had it for about 3 months, and after 3 months there's some people that told me about it. Not everybody knows this, but they told me that they had 250,000 court cases, and they can't handle that, and so they decided not to do it anymore. So it becomes counterproductive, doesn't it? Because, what happens when you get 250, the courts can't handle that. The people are basically saying, no, we're not doing it. And the whole idea is to generate revenue. And so when the people stand up and say no, then it's no. And that's all there is to it. And these people are Satanists, they're thieves, and until we stand up and put a stop to it, it's going to continue. By which ye also went and preached to the spirits in prison. Okay, that's hell, the spirit prison. And it shall come to pass in that day the Lord shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. And they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and they shall be shut up in the prison, and after many days shall they be visited. Okay, so they're all going to hell. Okay, all these Baal priests, all these Satanists, Obama, the Satanist, these Satanists in the federal government that are stealing all this money, these DC Satanists especially. It behooves every man who values liberty of conscience for himself to resist invasions of it in the case of others, or their case may, by change of circumstances, become his own. If ye love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsel or arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you. May our posterity forget that you are ever our countrymen. And that's Samuel Adams. Nobody could say it better than Samuel Adams. When shall it be said in any country that of the world my poor are happy, neither ignorance or distress is to be found among them? My jails are empty of prisoners, my streets of beggars, the aged are not in want. The tax is not oppressive, the rational world is my friend, because I am friend of its happiness. When these things can be said, then may that country boast of its constitution and government. And we have nothing to boast of here, okay? We have a bunch of Satanist thieves that have seized control of the government, and the jails are full of prisoners. We have these Satanist order followers running around populating the prisons. The streets are full of beggars. The aged are in want. The taxes are oppressive. So we need to do something about it to put a stop to it all, don't we? But if the watchmen see the sword come and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, that the sword come and take away any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at the watchman's hand. And either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. This is my effort to make sure that I'm blameless on Judgment Day. You are now watchmen. Circulate this far and wide. And I hope that you are blameless as well. Other videos, Bankster Thieves 1, 2, and 3. I've got over 230 videos. Churchianity series, No Such Thing as a Bank Loan. Bar Members 1, 2, and 3. Do-It-Yourself Kangaroo Courts. Martial Laws Here. Do-It-Yourself Traffic Stop. Do-It-Yourself Free Mail. Azel Pigs 1, 2, 3, and 4. DPS Pigs. Texas DPS Pigs. So, and I got lots more. So I would encourage you to educate yourself about what's going on. Copies of these documents can be found at my private group at Yahoo called Administrating Your Public Servants. I have YouTube videos that are videos of private information shares. They show these and other court citations that are available for a donation. And this last paragraph is for all you Satanist order follower revenue officers that think that I'm getting some privilege or benefit. You can put your privileges and benefits up your rectal orifice. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin. But as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can't accept the IOUs. The Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders. Send me an email for particulars. If you find this useful, then you need Pay It Forward. If you don't know what Pay It Forward means, then watch the movie. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website, sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. I have a Facebook community page that's been deleted because they were censoring it. Matter of fact, I have a YouTube video about how to hurt Facebook. I have a private group called Sovereignty International. It's being deleted at Facebook. I do have a Yahoo private group called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants and a Google private group called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. And most of my files are located at the Yahoo group, but I have large documents and things like that that are located at Google Docs that's associated with the Google private group. So anyways, I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video, and I hope you get something out of it, and I hope you have a real nice day.